There is a question that has crossed generations, a question that economists, philosophers, entrepreneurs, and scholars of human behavior have tried to answer for decades. Why do some people accumulate wealth throughout their lives, while others work hard for years and still remain in the same financial place? Many believe the answer lies in external factors: education, connections, opportunities, luck. But one of the richest men in history had a very different view on this matter. Andrew Carnegie believed that the fundamental difference rarely lay in external circumstances. It was in the mindset, in the way a person thinks about money, in the way they interpret opportunities, in the way they react to difficulties. Carnegie was not born rich. Quite the opposite. He was born in Scotland into an extremely poor family. His father was a weaver who lost his job when the Industrial Revolution began replacing manual labor with machines. The family's situation became so difficult that they decided to emigrate to the United States in search of a chance to survive. Carnegie was still a child. When he arrived in America, he started working very early, first in a cotton factory, then as a telegraph messenger. The wages were low. The work was exhausting. But there was something that set Carnegie apart from many people around him. He observed. He observed how businessmen thought. He observed how they made decisions. He observed how they dealt with problems. And little by little, he began to notice an interesting pattern. The people who prospered did not think the same way as those who remained stagnant. They saw the world differently. While many saw limitations, some saw possibilities. While many saw risk, some saw opportunity. This difference in perception seemed small at first, but over the years, it produced completely different results. Carnegie began to realize that wealth was not only a matter of money, it was a matter of mindset. He believed that many people pushed opportunities away without realizing it, not because they were incapable, but because they interpreted the world through a lens of limitation. For example, when a problem appears, two people can react in completely different ways. One person sees the problem and thinks, "This is too complicated. This will be too much work. Better to avoid it." Another person looks at the same problem and thinks, "If this is a problem, maybe there is an opportunity here. If I can solve this, maybe other people also need that solution." This type of thinking is extremely powerful, because many successful businesses were born exactly this way, from trying to solve a problem that other people preferred to avoid. Carnegie observed that people with a prosperity mindset do not run away from problems. They investigate problems. They try to understand the structure of the difficulty. They try to discover where hidden value exists, because every solved problem generates value, and value is the foundation of all lasting wealth. There is also another mental pattern that Carnegie noticed among people who prospered. They took responsibility. Responsibility for their own lives. Responsibility for their own decisions. Responsibility for their own results. This does not mean ignoring external difficulties, nor pretending that the world is always fair. But it means recognizing something important. Even in difficult situations, there are still choices. Choices about how to react. Choices about what to learn. Choices about which paths to explore. People who prosper tend to ask a specific question when they face difficulties. How can I improve this? While many others ask a different question. Why did this happen to me? The first question creates movement. The second usually creates frustration. Carnegie used to say that a solution-oriented mindset creates opportunities where others see only obstacles. But there is another important element in the mindset that builds wealth: the way someone interprets time. Many people want fast results. They want to prosper in a few months. They want a single opportunity to completely transform their lives. But Carnegie built his fortune over decades. Decades of learning. Decades of observing. Decades of adjusting strategies. He understood something that many people ignore. Great results are usually the consequence of small decisions repeated for a long time. Small improvements, small lessons, small adjustments that over the years create a huge advantage. This type of mindset requires strategic patience, the ability to work today on something that may only produce significant results years later. While many people search for shortcuts, people with a prosperity mindset build foundations. Foundations of knowledge, foundations of skills, foundations of relationships. And these foundations make it possible to build something much greater in the future. There is also another interesting aspect that Carnegie observed about people who accumulate wealth. They are deeply curious. Curious about how the world works. Curious about how businesses operate. Curious about how problems can be solved more efficiently. This curiosity creates constant learning, and constant learning creates advantage. Carnegie spent hours in libraries, reading books, studying strategies, observing how entrepreneurs thought. While many coworkers finished their shifts and simply went home, Carnegie invested time in expanding his mind. This did not happen because he had extra time. It happened because he believed knowledge was a tool for transformation. Over time, that knowledge began to change the way he saw the world. He began to notice opportunities that previously went unnoticed. He began to understand business patterns. He began to make more strategic decisions. But there is a specific mindset that Carnegie said was extremely dangerous. The scarcity mindset. This mindset makes a person believe that opportunities are rare, that resources are limited, that only a few people can prosper. When someone deeply believes this, something happens. The person begins competing for small spaces. Instead of creating new spaces, they begin thinking about protection. Instead of thinking about expansion, Carnegie believed exactly the opposite. He believed that the world offers almost unlimited opportunities for those willing to create value. And this mindset completely changes how someone positions themselves in life. Instead of asking, "Is there space for me?" the person begins asking, "What problem has not been solved yet? What improvement can be created? What value can I offer?" These questions direct the mind toward creation. And creation is the starting point of prosperity. But perhaps one of the deepest differences between people who build wealth and those who remain stagnant lies in how they deal with mistakes. Many people see mistakes as a sign of incapability, as proof that they should not be trying. So they avoid situations where failure is possible. But Carnegie observed something completely different. The people who prospered the most often made many mistakes. But there was a fundamental difference. They treated mistakes as information. Each mistake revealed something that did not work. Each attempt brought new data. Each failure helped adjust the path. Over time, this process created something extremely powerful: experience. And experience improves decisions, improves strategies, improves the perception of opportunities. But this process requires a specific mindset, the learning mindset. This phrase seems small, almost insignificant, but it has a profound effect on how someone builds their life. Because the moment a person decides that something is not for them, the mind closes the door before even investigating what is on the other side. The process ends before it begins. Andrew Carnegie observed that many opportunities go unnoticed not because they are rare, but because people's minds are trained to reject them quickly. A new project appears. An idea emerges. A market begins to grow. But the immediate reaction of many people is automatic. This is too complicated. This is for specialists. This is for more experienced people. This is not for me. Meanwhile, people with a different mindset ask a different question. They do not ask whether something is for them. They ask, "What would I need to learn in order to do this?" This change in question completely alters the direction of the mind. Instead of closing possibilities, it begins searching for paths. Instead of ending the conversation, it starts an investigation. An investigation creates learning. Learning creates skill. Skill creates opportunities. Carnegie believed that many people live within limits that were never tested. Limits that were born from old experiences, from comments heard over many years, from comparisons with other people. Over time, these ideas begin to form an identity. A person begins to see themselves as someone who belongs to a certain place in the world. Someone might tell themselves, "I'm not good with money. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not creative. I'm not a leader." These phrases seem like descriptions, but in reality, they are definitions. And definitions shape behavior. Because people tend to act consistently with the identity they believe they possess. If someone believes they are not good at business, they will rarely explore business opportunities. If someone believes they are not capable of leading, they will likely avoid leadership situations. Not because they truly couldn't, but because they believe they shouldn't. Carnegie observed something extremely interesting throughout his life. Many of the people who became extremely successful did not begin by believing in themselves. They began curious. Curious enough to try. Curious enough to learn. Curious enough to continue even when they did not have all the answers. This curiosity created movement. And movement creates something extremely powerful. Experience. Experience changes perception. When someone does something for the first time, the process may seem confusing. The person feels insecurity, feels doubt, feels afraid of making mistakes. But when they repeat the experience a few times, something begins to change. What once seemed impossible begins to feel merely difficult. What once seemed difficult begins to feel manageable. And what once seemed distant begins to feel achievable. This is the power of accumulated experience. But experience only appears when someone decides to act. And this is where another fundamental difference in mindset appears. People who prosper rarely wait for absolute confidence before acting. They understand that confidence is born from movement, not from waiting. While some people say, "When I feel more confident, I'll start," others say, "I will start, and confidence will come along the way." This difference seems small, but over the years, it creates completely different trajectories. Because those who wait for confidence often wait for a very long time. And those who start early begin learning early. Carnegie used to say that time is one of life's greatest multipliers. Those who begin learning early accumulate advantage. Those who begin experimenting early develop perception. Those who begin building early create opportunities. But there is another important aspect of the prosperity mindset: the relationship with work. Many people see work only as an obligation, something that must be done to pay the bills. But Carnegie saw work in a completely different way. He saw work as a laboratory, a place to learn, to observe, to develop skills. Even when he was still working as a telegraph messenger, Carnegie paid attention to everything around him. He observed how businessmen spoke, how they made decisions, how they handled problems. While some coworkers saw only a temporary job, he saw a learning environment. And this type of mindset transforms any situation into an opportunity. Because knowledge accumulated over time creates competitive advantage. Another characteristic that Carnegie often observed in people who prospered was the willingness to think big. This does not mean ignoring reality, nor does it mean taking irresponsible risks. It means allowing the mind to explore greater possibilities. Many people limit their ambitions before they even try. They imagine something bigger, but immediately reduce the idea. That's too big. That's too complicated. That's for other people. Carnegie believed that great constructions first begin in the imagination. Before any company exists, before any invention is created, before any project takes shape, everything begins as an idea. And when someone allows their mind to explore larger ideas, new possibilities begin to appear. But this requires courage, because thinking big often attracts criticism. It attracts doubt. It attracts people saying that something is impossible. And throughout history, almost every great innovation passed through this stage. At the beginning, they seemed unlikely. They seemed risky. They seemed exaggerated. But someone decided to try anyway. Carnegie also observed that people who prosper have a different relationship with time. While many think only about the short term, people with a prosperity mindset think in decades. They ask questions like, what can I learn over the next 5 years? What skill could be valuable in the future? What project could grow over time? This type of thinking creates different decisions in the present, because the person begins investing in things that may not bring immediate reward, but that may generate enormous results in the future. Knowledge, relationships, experience. These elements accumulate slowly, but when they accumulate over years, they create an extremely powerful foundation. Carnegie believed that wealth is rarely the result of a single event. It is usually the result of a long sequence of decisions, small lessons, small improvements, repeated over a long period of time. But perhaps the greatest difference in mindset lies in something even deeper: the way someone sees their own potential. Many people spend their entire lives believing their abilities are fixed, that they were born with certain talents, and that other abilities simply do not belong to them. But Carnegie believed that the human mind is far more adaptable than most people imagine. Skills can be learned. Knowledge can be acquired. Competencies can be developed. But only when someone decides to invest in their own growth. And that decision begins with a simple question. A question that can completely transform how someone builds their life. The question is, who can I become if I keep learning? This question completely changes the way a person sees their own future. Because instead of looking only at who they are today, they begin to consider who they can become over time. And this deeply alters the decisions someone makes in the present. When a person believes their abilities are fixed, every challenge feels like a test. If it goes wrong, it means that perhaps they are simply not good enough. But when someone believes they can evolve, every challenge becomes training. Something that develops skill. Something that expands perception. Something that strengthens experience. Andrew Carnegie observed that people who prospered had exactly this type of mindset. They did not see abilities as something permanent. They saw abilities as something that could be built. This mindset creates a completely different relationship with learning. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, the person begins to seek them. Because they understand that every difficulty contains an opportunity for growth. And growth, over time, creates advantage. There is something interesting about advantage. It rarely appears suddenly. It is built slowly. A skill learned here. An experience accumulated there. A mistake that teaches something important. A conversation that brings a new perspective. These small elements begin to accumulate. And over the years, they create something extremely powerful. Vision. The ability to see opportunities that other people do not notice. Carnegie used to say that many opportunities go unnoticed not because they are rare, but because most people are not trained to recognize them. When someone develops knowledge in a particular area, they begin to see patterns. They begin to notice problems that need solutions. They begin to identify possible improvements. While others see only ordinary situations, that person begins to see possibilities for creation. This is one of the reasons people who prosper tend to invest so much in continuous learning. They understand that knowledge expands perception, and perception expands opportunities. But there is another aspect of mindset that Carnegie considered essential: the willingness to take responsibility. Many people spend a large part of their lives waiting for external circumstances to change, waiting for the economy to improve, waiting for the perfect opportunity to appear, waiting for someone to offer them a chance. But people with a prosperity mindset rarely operate this way. They ask a different question. What can I do with what I have right now? This question completely changes how someone positions themselves in life. Because even in difficult situations, there are always small actions that can be taken. Learning something new, meeting new people, exploring an idea, testing a small project. These actions may seem small at the beginning, but when they are repeated over time, they begin to produce significant changes. Carnegie believed that many people underestimate the power of these small initiatives because they do not produce dramatic results immediately. But time transforms small actions into great results. This is one of the most important principles of building wealth. Accumulation. Wealth rarely emerges from a single event. It emerges from the accumulation of value created over time. Value in the form of knowledge. Value in the form of solutions. Value in the form of services. The more value someone is able to create for others, the greater the rewards they receive. This logic seems simple, but many people operate with a different mindset. They ask, how can I earn more money? While people with a prosperity mindset ask a different question. They ask, how can I create more value? This small difference completely changes the way someone works. Instead of seeking only immediate return, the person begins focusing on contribution, on solving problems, on improving something that already exists. And when someone becomes extremely good at creating value, money tends to become a consequence. Carnegie said that true wealth is not only about accumulating resources. It is about developing the ability to generate value continuously. And this ability is born from a specific mindset, the growth mindset. But there is another element that distinguishes people who prosper from those who remain stagnant: the way they deal with criticism. When someone decides to do something different, negative opinions almost always appear. Some people will say it is risky. Others will say it is impossible. Others will simply doubt that person's ability. This happens because any change challenges expectations, challenges habits, challenges the way people are used to seeing the world. Carnegie observed that many people abandon their projects not because they lack ability, but because of social pressure. They start something new. They receive criticism. They feel doubt. And they end up returning to the path that seemed safer. But people with a prosperity mindset develop an important skill. They learn to hear criticism without allowing it to determine their decisions. This does not mean ignoring useful feedback. It means distinguishing between constructive criticism and opinions based only on fear or limitation. This ability allows someone to continue moving forward even when others cannot see the same vision. And throughout history, almost every great achievement began exactly this way, as an idea that few people believed was possible. Carnegie also spoke frequently about persistence, because almost no important project works perfectly on the first attempt. Almost every venture goes through adjustments, corrections, changes in strategy. But many people interpret these difficulties as signs of failure, while people with a prosperity mindset interpret them as part of the process. They understand that progress is rarely a straight line. It is a sequence of attempts, of improvements, of continuous learning. And over time, this process generates something extremely valuable: mastery. The ability to do something better than most people. And mastery creates advantage. But perhaps the deepest observation Carnegie made about wealth is related to something extremely simple: the way someone thinks daily, not only in big decisions, but in small thoughts, in repeated thoughts. Because thoughts influence actions. Actions create habits. Habits shape results. And results, over time, build completely different destinies. For this reason, when Carnegie reflected on the difference between people who prosper and those who remain in the same place, he rarely spoke about money first. He spoke about mindset, about perception, about beliefs. Because before any external wealth exists, there is always an internal construction, a way of thinking that either opens or closes possibilities. And perhaps the most important question someone can ask themselves is not simply, how can I earn more money? Perhaps the most important question is another one. Am I thinking in a way that brings prosperity closer to me, or in a way that pushes it away?